Hey everyone, welcome to Plants and Politics. So last week, news outlets started sounding the alarm about the increasing baby formula shortage. You guys have probably heard about this. And this is a really serious matter because unlike adults, obviously babies have nothing to eat if the baby isn't being breastfed for whatever reason. And there are a lot of reasons not to do so. And, if this baby was relying solely on formula, there's literally nothing else for them to eat. So this matter should be on the top of the administration's priority list. And some have posited that Biden should use the Defense Production Act to ramp up immediate production. And I agree with that. But why is this happening in the first place? This isn't due solely to supply chain issues. It's not because of inflation, as some people have mentioned. It's not because we're sending money to Ukraine. No, this completely avoidable emergency appears to be the result of good old-fashioned greed, capitalism, monopoly power, and government corruption. In a nutshell, it's everything that is wrong with this country and the reasons why I created this show to begin with. So here's the deal. Here's what we know about this dangerous situation. The company that supplies a majority of baby formula in the US is called Abbott Nutrition. They make very well-known brands like Similac. They make others as well. And in February, their production facility essentially shut down because of a voluntary recall and an investigation. So apparently the Food and Drug Administration and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention started investigating after 5 babies developed bacterial infections. Tragically, 2 of them died. However, Abbott denies that their formula played any role in this. However, according to the Intercept news outlet, a whistleblower alleges that Abbott production plant managers, quote, falsified reports, released untested infant formula, and concealed crucial safety information from federal inspectors. And they say this led to this tainted formula. And I'll explain how in a minute. But this corruption and greed goes back even further than just this recent issue. And it shows how completely feckless the FDA is. In 2014, the FDA proposed more stringent safety standards at infant formula production facilities. More specifically, they wanted to increase the frequency of standard safety inspections at these plants. But a lobbying organization, who, by the way, they have a very noble sounding name, they stepped up to protect corporate profits. So this lobbying group is called the Infant Nutrition Council of America. Doesn't that sound great? Like they really care about infant nutrition? Yeah, well, they're a lobbying group, not just for Abbott, but also for Gerber, for Perrigo, for another company called Reckitt Benckiser, I think is how you pronounce it. And according to The Intercept, these companies control 89% of the share of all baby formula sold in the US. And this behemoth of a lobbying group that protects them and that stands up for them stalled and pressured the FDA enough that the FDA backed off of their original proposal to increase inspections. So they reduced their stability testing requirements as a result of these lobbying efforts. Rather than testing every 3 months, which is what they wanted to do, they said, okay, we'll only do the testing every 4 months. They also said, and this is unreal, that companies could completely skip their stability testing altogether if the new formula, quote, will likely not differ from the stability of formulas with similar composition, processing, and packaging for which there are extensive stability data. So just as we've seen in industry after industry, our government agencies, the ones you and I pay for with our taxes, They leave these monumental, literally life-saving decisions or life-threatening decisions to the greedy SOBs. They leave it up to these greedy SOBs who run these companies. They repeatedly allow the fox to guard the henhouse. These corporations are simply just trusted to monitor themselves and to be forthcoming. Over and over again, we see these corporations don't give a damn about anything other than lining their pockets and increasing dividends for their shareholders. And that is exactly what appears to have happened in this horrific case, because the whistleblower alleges that they had aging equipment and that it was replete with pinholes. And so that allowed bacteria to enter the pipes and taint the formula. But rather than using their massive profits to ensure the safety of tiny babies, no, Abbott spent nearly $6 billion on stock buybacks. And check this out, you guys. The whistleblower sent his letter warning the FDA, sent it to the FDA and sent it to a Democratic congresswoman in October of last year. But the FDA did not bother to inspect the facility in question until January 31st of this year. So they sat on it for 3 months. And then they sat on the findings for another more than 2 weeks. It wasn't until February 17th, over 2 weeks later, when they finally issued the recall. So when they were contacted for comment, Abbott tried to paint the whistleblower as this disgruntled employee. Oh, he was, they said he was fired for, quote, violations of Abbott's food safety policies. You have food safety policies? Really? What do they entail? And then they said, well, we're reviewing his letter and, we're going to investigate all of the allegations. So which is it? I mean, either he's a disgruntled employee and none of this is true, or yeah, there might be something there and we need to investigate. So we're going to have to see where all this all lands. But, are we supposed to now trust the FDA to complete an honest and legitimate investigation of this corporation when they're culpable to some degree in all of this? I mean, after all, they've allowed themselves to be manipulated and brought to heel by the companies that they're charged with regulating. And this is far from the first time that things like this have happened. I wrote about this kind of stuff in my book years ago, 6 years ago, I think it was now. So the FDA absolutely bears some responsibility for these deaths of these infants as well, if this formula turns out to be the source of that bacteria. And let's face it, would they issue a recall if they found nothing? Like I said, this was 100% preventable, but these greedy, craven SOBs just want more and more and more. And if we would enforce antitrust laws in this country, then we wouldn't have monopoly power like this. We wouldn't have 4 companies that hold such immense power over not just our government officials, but the public as well. Part of the promise of capitalism is that anyone can succeed and make it big, right? But that's complete and utter bullshit when our government allows monopolies to exist. There's no free market competition in this country anymore. Not when a handful of companies completely controls an industry. And when something like this baby formula shortage occurs, what are citizens going to do? They have nowhere to turn. They have the 4 big corporations. Those are their options. And now we're in a crisis mode because one of them was trusted to do the right thing and actually care about infants. But instead, no, they cared about stock buybacks. So now these desperate families are looking to the government to help solve a crisis and end this shortage. A government then seemingly played a role in helping to create this crisis to begin with. And, while Abbott stockholders got a whole lot richer with their stock buybacks, these families were suffering. 2 families suffered the most unimaginable loss and pain. And the Infant Nutrition Council of America, they got theirs. They probably got a nice fat payday for successfully backing down the FDA. This story perfectly encapsulates everything that's wrong with America. It is the quintessential American greed story, and it's why these middle of the road, let's sing kumbaya and find bipartisan compromise, these weak ass politicians are not going to cut it. We need strong, real populist fighters in Congress, people who refuse to take corporate money so that we know where their loyalties lie. We need Congress people who aren't afraid to take on our own government and our own so-called regulatory agencies that are obviously more interested in stopping the sale of supplements, safe and natural supplements, than they are in protecting infants from greedy corporations. And I guarantee it has to do with the revolving door, which I also talked about in my book. Because this is the problem. You have people who go from these industries to these government positions and back and forth, and they have friends on the inside, and they get people to make little changes and ignore stuff or overlook things. This is how it goes. And then they work with politicians, or they were once a politician themselves. So they know exactly who to talk to. They know exactly how to manipulate the system, and on it goes. And every corporation is in it for themselves, not you or I. They don't give a damn. It's profit over people every single day in this country. And until we change our leaderships, quote unquote, it's not going to change. And you and I pay the price. Average Americans pay the price. Anyway, guys, yeah, I'm pissed off. I'm really pissed off about this. You're harming babies for money, for greed. That's what it boils down to. It's freaking sick. When I hear more, I will let you guys know. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care. I'll talk with you soon.